In this video we are going to create a user control in a visual web part in Visual Studio. So here we have my user control and I can drag and drop controls from the toolbox to the source view. However, I can switch to split or design view and see my graphical design surface from there. I can select my controls and use the properties window to set the text property of this label to Hello World. Then very simply I can right click my project and choose deploy, and Visual Studio will package and deploy my web part up to my local SharePoint server. I can then switch to Internet Explorer and browse to my SharePoint site, and after a few seconds the home page appears, and I can then go to a web part page. So I have here a test page called Bonneville Testbed, and it's currently blank. I can switch to edit mode and then click Insert Web Part, and then I will locate my custom web part in the custom category. And here it is, it's called Bonneville. A few simple clicks and I have added my web part to the page, and I have saved the page. And there we have our very simple traditional Hello World message. Now let's switch back to Visual Studio and make this a little more compelling. So I will delete my label, and from the navigation pane in the toolbox I will add a tree view control. So you can see that I have added it to the design surface, but it has also been added to the markup. I can set properties in either the markup or in the properties window. So I'll say that the tree view control is called site structure. Now let's view the code behind file for this control, and I'm just going to drag and drop some pre-written code that I have to the page load function. Now let's have a look at the code. The first thing I do is instantiate an SP web object called thisWeb. Then I can start building up my tree view. So I first of all set the thisWeb object to spcontext.current.web, and from there I can start extracting the properties of the web object, such as its title and its URL, which I will use in the tree node. I add my tree node to the tree, and then I can start iterating through the lists in the website. So we have a simple for each SP list in thisweb.lists iterator. Now within my loop I can refer to each individual list by my list variable and extract things like its title and default view URL, again for use in the tree view. I can also then do the same thing for the subwebs. So I have my function called addWebs, and I'm just going to add my pre-written code to save me typing it out, but it's very simple code. Again, we have for each subweb in the web, we will get its title and URL, and we will build a tree node of that. The same thing for the lists in the subweb. So we're adding the list title and the list default view URL. Now for each subweb, well, they may also each have their own subwebs. So we will recursively call addWebs. I can right click my project and click deploy. And when I switch back to Internet Explorer and refresh the page, my new web part is rendered. So that's how simple it is to deploy and in fact redeploy from Visual Studio. It takes a few seconds to refresh the page because we have just recycled the application pool by redeploying. Now when the page refreshes we can see that we have our tree view. So I can start expanding our tree nodes, and we have our intranet root web with all of the lists that we iterated through, and each of those have their own tree node. And if I were to click one we go straight to that URL. Remember we extracted the default view URL for each list for use in the tree view. And then we have the first subweb in our intranet site, which is called Project Management. It also has its own lists, and again we can navigate directly to them very simply by clicking the tree view control. Project Management also has a subweb called Financials, and we iterated through this with the recursive call to addWebs, and we have documented all of the lists in the financial website. It has its own lists like announcements, shared documents, and so forth.